Welcome, everybody, today to our presentation, which is 2016 Hiring Trends and Strategies. My name is Ian Alexander, and I head up marketing for Talemetry. And I'm joined today by Stephen Schwander, who heads up our Client Solutions Group. And Stephen, welcome to you, and good afternoon to you out in the Midwest there.
Thank you. Hello, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody as well. And speaking of New Year, that's why we're here to talk a little bit about what to expect in the new year from a trend standpoint. Before we jump into that, I just want to give a quick overview of our company, Talemetry. Talemetry, we provide a full-spectrum recruitment marketing platform which helps organizations attract employees through things like job distribution, to job boards, social networks, digital ad sources, recruitment agencies, etc., all the way through sourcing and engagement. So we have a full CRM that allows organizations to centralize their talent pools and source from those and run nurture campaigns and invite candidates to apply, all the way through to candidate experience. We have a career sites module that allows organizations to create targeted mobile-enabled career sites and apply processes for their organizations, and it all works with your ATS. So that's Talemetry, a little background there. Let's talk about 2016 trends. We've kind of looked out over what our clients are doing, what the industry is telling us, what we're hearing from conversations with prospects as we're out in the marketplace talking about telemetry and working with organizations as they face these issues, and we've kind of put together our view of what those trends are. So we're going to look at those trends at the beginning portion of the presentation. We're going to look at the second half is going to be about what kinds of strategies you can implement to mitigate those trends. And finally, we'll do some Q&A. And on the housekeeping side, two things. You can ask questions at any time. There's a chat box in your webinar console that should be showing on your screen. So go ahead and ask questions anytime. Typically, we answer those at the end, but ask them as you get them, because if they are relevant and they're not covered in a future slide, then we'll definitely push those into the conversation. All right. And then the other housekeeping is, yes, you will get slides and you will get a recording of this presentation about a day or so after we conclude. So that'll automatically come to you. Let's jump right into the trends. The biggest trends, and I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anybody, is hiring is going to be more difficult. All right, so 2015 has been a difficult year in terms of hiring. There's been a big shift in terms of control to candidates because there is a supply and demand issue, and it's only getting worse in 2016. So according to the IMF, the job market's projected to grow by 2 million jobs in 2016. We also look at the fact that it is an election year, so there will be a lot of pressure to keep employment high and unemployment low, and sort of a corollary to that is unemployment is projected to go to about 4.5% this year, and if it's like other election years, you can pretty much lock that in, barring any huge global crisis. So we also decided to take a look at kind of what are some of the toughest jobs to hire out there. And as we look at it, as you might think, tech and healthcare are definitely leading the pack. Data scientists, according to Gartner, 6,000 companies are expected to hire almost 4.5 million IT jobs over the next year. When you look at electrical engineering, currently there are 17 openings for every electrical engineering candidate, according to Randstad. General managers, operation managers, there's going to be 613,000 open unfilled jobs by 2022. Same with home health aides, 600,000 additional jobs needed by 2022. Information security analysts, Microsoft projects that 2.7 million cloud computing workers are going to be needed in 2016. Medical services managers, we've got 73,000 additional needed over the next 6 years to be up. There are 229,000 physical therapists needed in 2016 and only 196,000 candidates. Nursing continues to be impacted. We've got 500,000 projected retirements over the next 6 years. and a projected need of about 1.05 million over the next 6 years, and an additional 223,000 candidates for software engineer by 2022. So those are some of the ones that sort of jump out as difficult areas, and not too many of those are surprising for those who are in the audience that work in those industries. But a good way to look at kind of sort of, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation, but to that point, I just threw this slide in yesterday because I came across this statistic by Aberdeen Group from research that happened just a few months ago, where 79% of the companies they surveyed believe there's a dearth of critical skills available in the labor pool. All right, so there's a bit of a disconnect there, because if you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2015 there was only 1.5 candidates per open job, unemployed candidates per open job. And to put that statistic in context, at the height of the recession at the end of the last decade, there was 7 unemployed candidates per open job. All right, and that 1.5 unemployed candidates per open job today is lower than pre-recession rates, which were around 2. Further, what's not on this slide is that it's projected to go to about 1 candidate per open job by 2018. All right, so the projections are that it's not going to get better, and I've even heard that these projections are likely to be tipped in candidates' favors all the way through 2040. So there's a bit of a disconnect between perception in many organizations of availability of talent and the reliability and the availability of that talent in reality. And I'm sure many people who are on the call today sort of feel that within their organizations as they're looking to increase, whether that's a budget, manpower, change strategy to address some of these challenges that are imposed by the restriction of supply in terms of candidates. So leads us to trend number 2, which follows, right? So if you've got such a constriction in the supply of candidates, then candidates are going to be, especially in-demand candidates, are going to be receiving multiple offers. If you're looking to hire the top 10% for any given position, it's going to be a very competitive situation, which means you need to be able to act quickly. So Roth Staffing did a study where they estimate that you're going to need to be effective in this market to be able to go from interview to offer in about 4 to 5 days, or risk losing that talent. So compression of hiring times definitely follows the first one. And then Stephen, since you're much younger than I am, I wanted you to focus on the younger workforce and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, right. How many months is that? So I think this trend is kind of an obvious trend. I think we all understand this trend, but when we really think about what does it mean, both this and the prior slide, what does it mean in terms of pushing challenges to our talent acquisition strategy? So right now there's about 35% millennials in the workforce. That's going to push to 47% by 2020. That's all fine and good, but the reality now is that 1 in 4 managers are also millennials, and so how we deal with management as well as candidates is going to be changing. And in the coming year or 2 or so, we'll start to see that next generation enter the workforce as well. So we really need to say not only who but when is our talent process built for, and I think that's kind of key. Forbes says that 3.6 million baby boomers are going to retire in the next year, and more than 1/4 of millennial workers are going to become managers, right? So there's a lot of talk about boomerangs, right, on the side of the boomer population, right? But then they're coming back to potentially work for millennials. So succession planning is going to be huge over the next couple of years, and generational leadership issues are going to become critical over the next couple of years as well. And we need to begin to think about, what do millennials expect in the workplace, versus what some of our more longer-term employees have expected. So they expect a very flexible workplace. I would argue that boomerang employers are going to expect the same, right? Millennials are going to expect some value and some purpose out of that. Frankly, I expect that boomerangs are going to expect that as well if they're going to give up their time. Millennial management is going to probably flatten some of the hierarchies out, so you won't see quite as many layers of management. It'll be flatter and wider. But the challenge with that is oftentimes millennials, they want the leadership but don't necessarily have the expertise for that. So a little bit of a training and management issue there as well.
Yeah, and I think the point there is where that rolls in, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, is you really need to get smart about how you're communicating with your different constituencies as candidates, because the points of value in terms of your employer brand are going to be very different for different constituencies within your recruiting base. Whether that be a boomer, whether that be, if we're going to throw labels around, whether that be a boomer, whether that be Gen Z, whether that be millennials, the points of value are going to be different. You need to be able to talk to them that way. But we'll get to the strategies a little bit later.
So another trend, I think we all see this, right? Because there's probably not a person on the phone that doesn't expect this either in any of our places in life, right? So consumer quality technology. We've got a point here about the Internet of Things. It's becoming an expectation also in the enterprise. Wearables are going to start to impact the workplace in 2016 in a way that they haven't yet, right? Internal recruiting technology is going to have to be more intuitive, more mobile, more social, which is really just double and trebling down on some of the forces that we've seen already. And the candidate-facing technology again needs to be intuitive, mobile, and social. We say this almost every year over the last couple of years, and yet as we work with our larger clients, we still see much of that candidate-facing experience being driven from internal requirements as opposed to external requirements, right? And in terms of what the candidate experience is like, and so I kind of liken it onto being at Home Depot and not having your little bar card on the piece of lumber, and all of a sudden nothing works anymore, and it takes you 5 times longer to get in and out than what it should. And it's the same way on our career sites and through our applicant process. They expect that to be quick. And when we say mobile, it's not just about consuming the content, but being able to at least take an action and respond in a really quick but meaningful way through that mobile experience.
Right, and to connect the two, how important is it to be able to, when you need to respond to go from interview to hire in 4 to 5 days, how important is it to reach a candidate where they are on a mobile device to compress those times?
And Ian mentioned this earlier in terms of branding, and is branding monolithic for any organization, or do we need to be far more concerned about what our brand and our proposition is to different either age groups or talent groups within our organization? But about 60% of organizations are likely to invest more in employer brand, through sites like LinkedIn, but also career site. A lot of our clients, as they look at the career site, they're looking at how flexible can we make the career site so that we can have these different messages out there. How do we get our branding message out through social media, not just dumping jobs out there, but how do we get those brand messages out in all of our communications and interactions? What are we saying, even from the automated responses that come out of our ATSs, etc. What are we saying to people? 90% of millennials will thoroughly research opportunities online, so we need to understand what our brand is saying, not only where we have control, but also where we might not have control. We need to be paying attention to corporate feeds and pages. We need to be paying attention to open social media messages in terms of what people are saying out there about our employee brand.
Yeah, and I like to say that brand and your messaging is sort of a foundational strategy in that it's going to run through everything that you do. So it's good to see that the LinkedIn study shows that 60% of organizations are investing more here. And we're seeing this, a lot more interest in this, because that is something that is going to ripple through everything you do in terms of effectiveness and ability to compete in this particular kind of market that we're in.
Yeah, so video is on the rise. I think again, this is obvious. We see it in the general culture, but also it's interesting. About 3/4 of the RFPs that I respond to will ask if we have the capability to integrate the video. Now, to be honest, they're not saying what they want to do with it, but they're recognizing that this is a way forward, and that video is starting to take off. So when we think about video being on the rise and how powerful video can be, particularly to talent acquisition, then we can start talking about video job descriptions. We can start talking about video interviews. We might even start to see some video resumes, if you will, right? But then also the use of video in terms of sending that brand message and that value proposition message.
And that brings us to trend number 7, the confluence of recruiting and marketing. So again, we refer to this LinkedIn report a couple of times, but 47% of recruiting organizations are expecting to work more closely with marketing in 2016. And this is a trend. We've all been talking about how marketing and HR have more and more in common as time goes on, or perhaps have always been linked. And recruiting and marketing are becoming more and more similar in terms of approach, and that's really happening in 2016. Everything from branding to messaging, to sourcing, engaging, and nurturing, all of those things, as they become more important to the long-term recruiting effectiveness. And a lot of what we're going to talk about, and what we are talking about, is addressing sort of this macro environment from a strategic standpoint. As I said, things are not projected to get better, so we need to look at long-term sort of strategy. So leveraging that internal capability, whether that's establishing it in HR or working with your internal marketing group, is going to be more and more important to overall success in the long term. The number 8, HandsFree Recruiting. This year, we expect to see a lot more automation. I mean, again, a foundational strategy towards dealing with scarcity in terms of supply of candidates is going to be automation and operational efficiency, right? And recruiting and HR in general has gone through a long automation cycle here, and that's a cycle that unfortunately never ends, because innovation continues to happen, and cultural change within the marketplace continues to happen. So this automation needs to be sort of an ongoing process, and what you think you may have automated now may not be the best method of automation or the most integrated method of automation. So one of the things that you're going to see more of is this sort of predictive automation, using data that you're collecting in the sourcing and recruiting process, and using that to automate manual tasks. And sort of an example I would throw out is, let's say you opened up a job requisition, and immediately your system, based on the performance of your job distribution, understood what the best channels for that particular job family are, and automatically posted, without ever going across anybody's desk, automatically posted those boards, so you would begin to get resumes and profiles in more quickly, so that you can compress those hiring times. That's sort of an example of that predictive automation, and that's out there today, and that's going to increase as we go into 2016 and beyond. So as we look at all these trends, I kind of took a look at these and said, okay, now how do we organize this whole thing? And clear to me is there's sort of macro trends, these core trends, which is tight labor market, the need to sort of compress time frames, and this younger workforce that is uh, five, six, six trends are more reactions to those core trends. So I tried to say, well, let's organize this in a little bit, in a little way here. And as you can see, each one of these sort of affects the other. So these reactions, if you're looking at compressed time frames, as I said before, how does mobile experience fit into that? Does mobile become more important if you need to hire in a faster manner? If you've got scarce candidates, the ability to attract more people on their mobile devices, right, is important to that particular core trend as well. So I tried to draw all the lines here and ended up with a very sort of spider web kind of a graph. And what we're going to do throughout this webinar is organize that in a little bit based on the strategies, because the next section we're going to look at is what strategies can we implement and do we see being implemented to address these. So remember this particular graph, because we're going to come back to it and start to organize it and overlay strategies on it. So as we go into our strategy section, again, just get ready for harder, faster, and younger. Those are the core macro trends. They're not getting any better, or they're not changing. In fact, they may become more challenging. So talent's harder to find. Candidates are going to be increasingly in control. Employee and candidate pools are clearly getting younger, and it's not getting better anytime soon. So as we kind of look at strategies to mitigate this, it's important to understand where to apply your solutions, right? So it's clearly a supply and demand problem. So it makes the most sense to focus on the front end of the funnel, right? So not to say that there's not optimizations and strategies that can and need to happen throughout the entire recruiting life cycle, but primarily, if you've got a supply and demand problem, you've got to look at the front end of the funnel. And when I talk about the front end of the funnel, I'm talking about outbound sourcing. So the ability to proactively go out and find candidates through internal candidate pools and external resume databases. Inbound attraction is another front end of the funnel process. So that's job ad distribution, that's distribution to recruiting agencies, social networks, job fairs, et cetera. Anything you do that you're putting your jobs and your opportunities and your company out in front of candidates to attract them to you. Certainly conversion is a very important leverage point as we talk about marketing and recruiting coming together. A big part of marketing is what percentage of the people that you drive to your offer are you going to convert? Because that's the biggest leverage point. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But so for recruiting, we're talking about career sites, applications, talent networks, the things that you use to begin the conversation and engage that candidate. Of course, referrals, a big portion of this, whether that's social referrals, whether that's direct employee referrals, as well as internal mobility, the kinds of things that you do in terms of career mobility to move people up in their skill level so that they can fill more specialized jobs, as well as the training that you're doing to backfill on that, and how that fits into your overall front of the funnel ability to meet your demand. So if we agree that it's a front end of the funnel issue, then let's take this this is the spider chart again, and I've organized it a little bit. And this is my priority sort on the trends here as we begin to overlay strategies. So we talk about foundational approaches. Again, the difficulty in getting enough of the right kind of candidates for your jobs in a scarce labor market, operational excellence and efficiency is the biggest leverage point that you have. All right, so automation becomes the number one priority. We'll talk a little bit about automation strategies, but this is sort of the big one to look at, and that's standardizing, automating, and refining the talent acquisition process. Next, again, foundational, this runs across everything, is more deeply partnering with marketing to engage and drive programs and refine those programs. And then finally, the candidate focus, that that conversion piece, really focusing on the candidate experience, is a close there. So those are the three biggest leverage points, and that's how we're going to overlay the strategies that we go over here in the next section. So, of course, under candidate focus, the ability to cater to mobile, providing consumer quality technology, using video, and leveraging your brand are all big pieces of that.
So we're going to cheat for just a slide here, and talk about if the supply is so difficult outside, and we really need specialized talent who understands the technology that we work with and understands our product set, our service set as an organization, then obviously the best strategy might be for us to do a much better job around retention. And this is so often not seen as a talent acquisition issue within an organization, but I'd like to argue that it is, and so we might want to have our minds around this as well as we look at our technology and our process around talent acquisition. Retention is a lot cheaper, and it's easier to retain than it is to hire. A lot of large employers are increasing benefits to try to hold people back into the organization. But what can we do from a talent acquisition perspective? Number one is to be able to really emphasize some internal mobility and make it easier for people to find jobs internally, to apply for those jobs internally. Why not take a look at some of the strategies that we deploy for external? I know everybody's always worried about poaching internally, but I'd rather be in danger of poaching internally than letting my external competition poach my folks. So what kinds of strategies can we deploy internally to help people be able to move around, right? So I just throw that out there. We do have a number of clients that are using the same types of solutions that we put into play in their organizations to do things internally as well. So retention actually a really key strategy for 2016, but since we're in the business of hiring and talent acquisition, we'll stop cheating and move on to the next slide. As Ian said earlier, the trend here is harder, faster, younger. I would almost add a fourth one to that, which is smarter, right? So as we focus on the front end of the funnel, how can we not only work harder, but how can we work smarter, right? So as we centralize and maximize our sources, one of the things we want to combine our internal and our external sources into one segmented pool. Goes a little bit with what I said earlier in the prior slide. It is focusing on people that we already have inside, but also people who have already applied to jobs in the past. And I know you've heard about this trend where if you have somebody who applies for a job last year or within the last 2 months, and they got to the number 2 or number 3 spot, they were silver medalists, as it were, right? Didn't necessarily get the job, but they're still very well suited for the organization. Let's keep all of that data. Back when I was a headhunter, and it goes so far back that I don't think the internet was quite around yet, but we used to buy 3-year-old data. Because our ability to understand where a potential candidate was 3 years ago gave us some good insight into what types of jobs they might be interested in and suited in today. So why not use data that we already have? So combine your internal, meaning everybody that you already know, and your external sources, which are you're going out to all those paid data sources, etc., to get new people in. Put all of that into one place. So if you want to try to automate, then you want to put all of that into one place. Secondly, you want to develop a competency focus for sourcing, for a proactive sourcing first recruiting team, meaning rather than just pushing jobs out to the marketplace and then managing candidates as they come back in, we've got a number of clients now who are either building new or expanding their internal sourcing team so that they have the ability not only to go out and do purple squirrel recruiting, but they have the ability to go out and do proactive segmentation and building up candidate pools so that the recruiters who are doing full cycle have an active pipeline coming into them. You want to standardize and refine your processes. Again, for both that specialized, say purple squirrel or a high skill set, but also your volume sourcing, so that you You can standardize it and track it. So, hopefully you've got a system in place, not only from an ATS perspective, but from a marketing perspective, where you can standardize and then track the responses and what's happening along that, both for targeted sourcing, but also for volume sourcing. And then you want to be able to utilize other channels to the talent as a means of increasing that talent pool. So don't just look at job posting. You don't just look at third-party databases. Don't just look at your past applicants. But what are all of the channels that can pull data into that pool, and what are all the channels that you can go out and proactively pull data into that pool? So really do a focused intent on the front end of your funnel to get the right data in a way that it can be segmented intelligently.
And that becomes a proprietary resource that is only going to grow in value, and it's going to enable your ability to proactively meet demand as demand gets higher and supply gets lower or stays the same. And ask your marketing department. They've been doing this for years. Many years ago, the discipline of marketing became so fragmented and continues to be so that any interaction with a potential customer gets captured and put into a database and segmented, and any potential avenues for that are all tied into that database, so that we can continually market to that core pool, because it is so expensive and so difficult to reach prospective customers. And the same thing goes from the recruiting side.
So we've got just before I jump off there, we've got a client who is a global technology client who actually put this into place 2 years ago, and so for some very difficult skill sets. And because it's such difficult skill sets, they believe that after about 2 years, they're probably at about 80 or 90% saturation in terms of the context that they have in their proprietary database, so that they're no longer fully dependent for all of that data on those third-party data. And then when you take that and consider, well, of the people we don't have in there, in all likelihood, we have people in that database who know that people aren't in there. You start using that proprietary database in very much the same way that really good headhunters would use their proprietary database. But keeping with the idea of harder, faster, younger, then we need to get real about mobile, right? So mobile is a given today, and if clients don't have a really good mobile experience, then they're probably losing about 30, if not even 50% of their candidates. So you want to be able to hire faster with a mobile optimized communications plan. That could be email, it could be SMS. You want career pages that can be very easily consumed in a mobile environment, including jobs and applications and candidate communications. And it's not just about whether or not you can see things on that front page, but thinking about where people use mobile, right? Do they really want to go through a 16-page application process, even though you've made it work on a mobile application? Do they want to do that, right? So think about where are people consuming, and is there a better process that allows us to convert somebody, partially, and then come back and get the rest of the data when the relationship is deeper. So, all sorts of strategies like that to really get serious about, being harder, faster, and younger with your experience. Leveraging your brand, right? 97% of career site traffic, they say, never actually applies. Now that might actually be okay, but you're losing 97%. Now you probably don't want a vast majority of that 97%, but can you imagine if you push that number from 97% just down to 94%, right, and doubled the number of people who apply? I remember a few years back we put in a new, it was not the company I'm working for now, but we put in a new application process in the career site, and we actually lost candidates, and we were really concerned about it until we realized, wait a minute, we were getting a better quality candidate. So, what about your career site is helping the right people make the decision up front to take that next step, right? So your website's got to do a lot more selling up front. It's not informing, it's selling. And I think that's another. I think it's funny. I saw a tweet just earlier today about whether or not there was too much content, in talent acquisition. Yeah, there is, and there's too much. There's too much informing and not enough selling when it comes to this portion of it, right? So we want to be able to deliver relevant content and relevant jobs to the right people in a way that gets them at least to convert, if not to complete a complete application, but to at least convert so that we get a sense that the right people are interested in our jobs.
Yeah, and this is a huge one, Stephen. As you said, it's a big leverage point. And in this environment of, again, tight supply on candidates, can you afford to have to wonder whether 97% of it, and that's a good conversion rate. That's actually, if you can get 3% of the traffic that comes to your career site to convert to an applicant, that's a pretty good. I mean, they go down to 1% or even less, depending on your audience, your company, your processes, etc. But you can't afford to have, again, 4 to 5 days from interview to offer. You need to do the best job possible, and the second bullet, selling your benefits before the candidate ever reaches your application confirmation page, so that as people come into your applicant tracking system, they're indoctrinated and they've got a good feeling about the company, et cetera. One, that's going to increase your ability to hire. But then you're also, again, hitting that leverage point of turning a 3-point difference into doubling the amount of candidates that you have that you're converting from just viewers to actual applicants. And that can happen both in an application process. It can also happen in an opt-in process for a talent network, let's say.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that key trend around a consumer quality experience, right? So I mean, it's we've been talking about the candidate experience for over a decade in the talent acquisition space. It's not going away, right? And as that experience becomes better and better on a retail, and we have to be honest and say, look, we are selling jobs, and selling jobs is not like selling computers. But we do need to realize that it is selling, and we need to be able to focus on the candidate experience. So again, I think we've talked about the mobile social experience. How do we get the message out? But then more importantly, how can we convert? And I keep using the word convert because I think it's really wrong of us, to just simply think about a visitor and an applicant, right? Most organizations who sell understand that there is a long journey between that first message and the actual credit card, right? And we need to see that in talent acquisition as well. So we get that experience out there, we get the messaging out there, we give the capability to respond in the way that a candidate is or a prospect, right, is willing to respond at that time. Right. I think secondly, we need to be able to segment and deliver targeted content. It's amazing. I'm always amazed when I sit here, and we don't want to drop cookies, so we don't want this going on. But I'm always amazed when I sit here on a website and they're selling me something that I really looked at 5 days ago. But by the same token, just today I got a job invite for a network admin. Well, there's no way I'm a network admin. Maybe I could come administer your Taleo instance, but I'm certainly not a network admin. So somebody's not doing a good job at point number 2, right, which was segment and deliver targeted content. This is where you can build the best proprietary database in the world, but if you're just sending general messages out, you're going to hurt your brand, and you're not going to get the right people to convert in the right way. So you need to be able to segment intelligently, and then send targeted content to that target. I've spoke about lowering the barrier to engagement. So maybe they don't have to complete a 16-page application. Maybe you just want their their resume. Maybe you just want their LinkedIn profile and email address, right? And then you can push the conversation forward a little bit beyond that. When we're building almost anything. In the consumer world, we always, they're always giving us the option to buy something that's right there. But a lot of times, if you go looking for jobs, you can't find jobs, or you have to know enough about the organization's structure to be able to know what to put in the search boxes to find jobs. So you want to put your jobs right up front and center, right? Now, all of this comes together because if I hit a page with targeted content to my interest, I then should see jobs to that interest as well, right? So you can kind of see how that works throughout a career site. You want to be able to create compelling ads and descriptions. Now the challenge here, of course, is that most of us are stuck with the descriptions that are sitting in our ATS, right? But let's get creative beyond that then, right? If I go to run a job search on Indeed, what's going to make me click your job versus the other 15 jobs that have the exact same job title? So how can we use our marketing system rather than the ATS to get compelling job ads, descriptions, and titles out there so that we can get people to convert more quickly? How about more visuals, less text, or even more visual text, right? In other words, let's describe what's happening for people and give them something that they can emotionally connect with, rather than just here's the 5 keywords you need to have if you're going to apply for this job. The next one is communicate regularly. It's amazing, even at director levels in the organization, how people can put their application into an ATS, which is a huge black hole, may never ever hear from anybody again, right? We are now starting to see some of our clients are coming to us saying, look, I know that you're in the sourcing and recruitment advertising business, but how do we continue to communicate with candidates even after, right? So we don't want to mess with them in the ATS because of our tracking there, but how can we keep people active and happy even if we know they're stuck inside our ATS in a waiting stage, right? So, can your CRM tool be smart enough to know what's happening in your ATS tool so that you can continue to send out, warm and inviting messages rather than automated, very sterile messages? And then try to survey your candidates, right? How was this information helpful to you? Don't ask them to fill out a huge survey. Just throw some real quick yes, no out there so you can grab a better understanding of what's happening for you.
It's all important, and you should be able to, when we talk about segmenting, deliver targeted content, you should be able to know obviously what your most in-demand jobs are. You should be able to provide a path through your website to get people who are engineers or electrical completely targeted to them, right? And then in terms of Stephen talking about, well, we're kind of saddled with what we get out of the ATS, and we're hiring 50,000 people this next quarter alone. We can't go in there and be getting creative with every single job description. Well, but you should know what your traffic rates are to specific jobs and what your conversion rates are for specific jobs, and be able to identify, well, these are the ones we really need to focus on, and then present those within your career sites accordingly, and then also spend the time to get more creative with those. And then, Stephen, you talked about is there too much content in HR and recruiting? Certainly on websites there are, on many, if not most, career sites that I see, and if I can say one thing, that every year you should be putting less words and more visuals on your website, because every year, if things continue, every year there has been less and less tolerance for long text within a website, and you're losing more and more people the more content you put out. So many organizations say, well, geez, we put all our benefits on there, and we've talked about what a great place to work for we are, but that's getting read less and less. So that's where things like video and things like emotional pictures tell, picture says 1,000 words. Well, that's definitely more true now than ever. So it's that visual orientation is so important.
So back on the trend with consumer quality tech, a lot of what we just talked about also is relevant here, is right. So we almost all need an ATS for tracking applicants, right? But on the some of the ATSs are doing better at the front end piece, but they are best at doing that back end, process oriented, internally oriented piece of work. So how do we then leverage best of breed solutions for candidate facing experiences, for getting the messages out there like we've spoken about, for getting the communications out there like we've spoken about, for being able to segment and target messages out there like we've spoken about. How can we put together career sites that are enterprise capable and yet are accessible to those of us who are in the field every day and need to make them work? How do we do job distribution in a way that is automated, as we said earlier on, but also delivers all of the intelligence that we need? Is there a better way to do interview scheduling and provide surveys and assessments? Let's think outside the confines of the ATS to try to create an experience that's flexible, scalable, and really good.
All right, and we are running a little bit, as unfortunately is typical, we're running a little bit late here, so I'm going to speed things up a little bit. We talked about recruiting and marketing merging, and again, just to hit the point home, who better to drive sourcing campaigns or help drive sourcing campaigns than a marketing group that is very facile in doing that from a prospect standpoint? Who better to implement and drive messaging and employer brand than your marketing department? Who better develop job ads and create impactful and forget the word, but compelling messaging that elicits a response than your marketing department? And who has been doing the kinds of high-level analysis and refinement of these processes more than your marketing department? So there's a number of different ways that we're seeing organizations do that. One is create a marketing function within HR. It's great if you can do it. And many of our clients and prospects, we see that function emerging more strongly. But also there's the ability to create a matrix relationships with maybe some existing internal marketing resources. So that's creating a group or a resource or number of resources within marketing. You can focus all or part of their time on recruiting, the recruiting function. That's effective as well. And in either of these scenarios, being marketing, which is largely outsourced, there will be a fair amount of contractor work and coordination of outsourcing as well. And again, that marketing expertise is very important in managing those relationships as well. So this last couple here on strategies are around automating the front of the funnel, and really that's about identifying those high-touch activities that are happening that you may or may not know about. So work with staff to discover those manual processes, and there's a couple of places to look for that. One is where there's kind of a lack of automation, and I talked before about the fact that you may have something automated, but there's better automation available. So we look at something like job distribution. There may be many manual processes in terms of jobs that you're distributing or sync to your ATS, or manual processes around human intervention or recruiter intervention to enable that one job post to many job boards and be making decisions on a day-to-day basis that could be better automated. So other things are sort of candidate engagement and email campaigns. If you're doing one-offs and those types of things, you're not able to schedule those things and automate that. That's a place to look. Keeping on top of career site content, etc. The other place is how much time are you spending with unintegrated tools and processes. So you may have multiple tools, and quite frankly, most recruiting organizations are notoriously in this boat. You've got a great, as I say, sort of, you should have one system to hire and one system to acquire, and most organizations are trying to work within their hiring system, which is their ATS, to enable a lot of processes. So there's a lot of different tools bolted on that. Some may or may not integrate with the ATS, and some may or may not integrate with each other. So that's a place to look as well. Using the most integrated, both horizontally and vertically, systems. Um, the other side, and this goes into the next slide, is really standardizing your candidate acquisition tools and processes so that they're all measurable in a similar way. You're not measuring your job posting effectiveness based on your media partners' analytics and your hiring effectiveness in a disconnected way in your ATS based on self-selected sources from your career site. You're not looking at career site traffic from different sites. You're able to look at all of these analytics in a similar way so that you can then begin to make your processes and your technology more extensible, and you're able to scale. And what that enables is this next wave, which in order to be able to be effective in this, again, tight supply and demand market, is to be able to centralize your processes, centralize your metrics, and then that gives you the ability to analyze and optimize and become that highly optimized recruitment organization that is going to be best of breed, and it's going to win. It's going to win more talent. It's going to win in the talent wars, if I can be sort of melodramatic there. But it's going to allow you to win that one-on-one battle to get those candidates. You can focus your energies on the more successful sources and activities. Again, if you've got all your recruiters using the same system to attract and engage and source candidates, then you can not only see which sources are working for you, but which activities that individual recruiters are doing are the most effective, and you can de-emphasize the most effective ones and de-emphasize the ones that aren't effective, and you can leverage that success into training across your entire organization because everybody's using similar processes and are standardized. And then obviously that leads to being able to optimize your budget so you're able to do more with less, and you're getting more of the right candidates for the same amount of effort and budget. So we remember this. This is the prioritized view of the trends and the focus in the trend reactions. And so now I've kind of taken the next step is to overlay some of the strategies that we talked about here. So we have the trends at the top. But when we look at automation, what are we talking about? We're talking about centralizing and growing your talent pool. Get your internal and external sources all in one place so you can source from one spot. It'd be most efficient. As Stephen said, develop that mindset or that mission of we are a source-first recruiting organization. Because as you develop that centralized talent pool, you'll be able to become that. And you'll have better access to past applicants, talent that you don't know in terms of external sources, and you'll be funneling every interaction that you have with candidates, whether it's through a talent network or whether it's through a recruiting event, into that talent pool, so you're able to go back to that well. Again, hand in hand with that, you're regularly engaging that talent pool, so you're keeping it warm, you're sending out job offers, you're sending out content based on people's interests within that talent pool to keep them warm until you're ready to hire them or you have an appropriate position. And you're automating and optimizing your processes around all that so that you're continually getting more efficient and better able to compete in this sort of scarce talent environment.
Just to jump in there too, the whole idea of the source first approach, I think, is really critical. And again, it's about a smart sourcing first approach, right? So, we've had job alerts in systems for years, right? And there are new talent network capability that goes a little bit beyond that. But so often in both of those situations, all we know is somebody's email address and the type of job they're interested in. We don't know if we're necessarily interested in them or if they're the right fit. So again, having all of the data in your proprietary pool and being able to segment that is going to allow you to have a much more intelligent source first, finding the right segment and sending that open job to them or that invite out to them based upon a much deeper and broader understanding of who they are.
Exactly. And if we look at marketing partnership, we're embedding marketing into HR, whether that's from a matrix standpoint or from a departmental standpoint. we're maximizing the brand and the messaging, utilizing those marketing skills, utilizing marketing to drive sourcing, create and implement nurturing campaigns, and then helping us measure those results to again feed into that optimization as well. And then finally putting candidates at the very front end of everything. Candidates are control, let's let them be in control and let them dictate how we approach them. And as we've talked about, that's optimizing all the digital interactions. It's selling more strongly selling benefits up front to the candidates that you don't normally interact with to increase those conversion rates. Enable easier and faster engagements through things like talent networks and sort of low barrier signups and opt-ins. And of course, at the foundation, can't ignore mobile. Have to provide that consumer quality tech. It's a competitive advantage to dazzle candidates at the front end with how easy and how efficient your processes are. Again, use of video falls right in with mobile. And again, we talked about leveraging that brand. So that's the cut of the strategies. And Stephen, you want to talk a little bit about how you're delivering those in a concrete way.
But we were just talking about automating the third-party sourcing, right? So, if you can push out and pull back the data that is relevant for you and do that in an automated way, you'll begin to build that talent pool very quickly because you can't segment what you don't already have. So I think that's a really good way to begin that automation. In terms of marketing partnerships, you can't always go out and hire new marketing people, but perhaps you can work with your marketing department to get resources that might be seconded to you, or incorporate them in sort of a matrix basis to work together with you, so that you have a little bit of marketing understanding together with that. And I think in terms of candidate focus, step outside the ATS, not just delivering a candidate experience that is demanded by your ATS, but optimize and target your career sites. Very simple to do without making really big changes on the ATS, right? Implement talent networks that pull full profiles in, not just names and email addresses, and have a much more concise visual experience. There's some things you can do there that don't take a whole lot of work. Some very simple steps that you can take to start pushing down that delivery mechanism.
Okay, as I look at time, we're out of time. We've got a few questions here. Many of them are around will there be copies of the slides? Everybody who's on the call will get an email with a recorded version of this webinar as well as the slides. So look forward to that probably within the next 24 hours. So that will be coming out to you, and because we're out of time, I'll just tell you, you can learn more about telemetry and our recruitment marketing solutions and our recruitment marketing platform at telemetry.com, or if you want to reach out to me individually, I'm at ialexander@telemetry.com. And the other questions we have here will follow up by email, sort of offline. But I want to thank everybody for showing up. Looking forward to a great 2016, despite the bad news about the hiring and the difficulty in the hiring market. I think we're all up for the challenge, and good luck to everybody in the new year, and we will see you on the next webinar. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.